One of the great research notes over the weekend was off the London desk of Barclays. Let's look at this before we bring Ambassador Speckhard back, our former ambassador to Greece. IOUs would trade in a secondary market to overcome the needs of domestic transactions. The drying up of euros as a result would then lead to a rapid devaluation of this parallel currency and therefore a surge in inflation, which would be a drag on purchasing power. Some of the thoughts from Barclays as we move towards a drachma. Ambassador Speckhard is with us, of course, Daniel Speckhard with the Lutheran World Relief Fund. Ambassador, if we get an IOU, if we get script, if we get a new drachma, that is amazing hardship. With your experience at the Lutheran World Relief Fund, what would happen to the social fabric of your Greece?
Well, I think the real problem, and you see this in any country that goes through a catastrophe like this, is that it's the very poorest who suffer the most. It's not equally across society. And already, after 5 years of austerity, the people at the bottom of society are the ones that are hurting the most. It's interesting to note as well that in this country you have probably anywhere from 500,000 to 1 million illegal immigrants coming from the Middle East and Afghanistan. Right. And so these people are really already on the edge, and they're a second-class group of people there that are really hurting. I
was told once by a sophisticated officer within the Papandreou government that the money outside Greece would come flooding back in with a proper currency devaluation. Do you agree with that the Greek people around the world would pour money back in for investment to get growth going?
Well, I'm sure there's a strong ties in diaspora, but I don't think that you can expect that to lift Greece out of its current challenge. What you would expect, though, is Greece is really a great country in terms of the possibilities, and particularly in tourism and other areas, that if they ever got the policies right, there are a lot of investors that are interested in Greece. It's just in the current government and the current situation that's really kind of unimaginable right now.
Ambassador, I was surprised to read the word social unrest in a research note from a bank. What could the scale of that unrest be in Greece?
Well, that's really a serious issue. I mean, you have to remember, this Syriza government was the very far left. They had only 5% of the vote when I was there, and they're basically made up of Leninists, Marxists, and anarchists. And so they have a long tradition of street protest, and some of it, not Syriza, but some far-left elements in Greece have been violent in the past and militant. And in fact, in the United States has had 5 assassinations since the 70s from some of these very, very radical groups in the country. So if the country devolves into a situation where people can't eat anymore, you can expect some pretty significant turmoil.
Ambassador, thank you so much for being with Bloomberg Surveillance today. Daniel Speckhard with his public service from about 2007 into 2010. We continue with Daniel Alpert of Westwood Capital. Dan, what you do so great in your research notes is you combine in the different themes of the moment. Let's start with the moment for the ECB. What is the moment for Mario Draghi? He did better than good 2 years ago or so, didn't he?
He did. I mean, look, at this point, he needs to make a very tough decision. I don't know how you can, unless you put a blindfold on and wink a lot, I don't know how you can really come to the conclusion that the Greek banks are solvent. They're really not. Most of the loans they have out to the government are not collectible in euro. They may be collectible in something else. And so he needs to sort of bite the bullet and deal with that issue, not permit the type of social unrest that Ambassador Speckhard was talking about, which would no doubt result.
But can a Janet Yellen do that? Can a Mario Draghi do that?
Remember, there's no relationship between the ECB and any other central bank. The ECB is a central bank to 18 countries at once. It's a dysfunctional system at the end of the day. This is the final move towards that disunity.
Brendan, what is your thoughts on this? Is Draghi different where he actually can have a political impulse to Germany and France?
I think the comparison to Draghi is fair with Yellen in the sense that Yellen does things when there's no political will to do anything else. She does monetary policy because we can't do fiscal policy. In Europe, I think it's exactly the same. They are locked. They can't do fiscal policy because the Germans can't change the way they think about the world. The other countries can't either. And so Mario Draghi is, like Yellen, the only game in town.
In that respect, but let's keep in mind, I agree with you, but in that respect, look, the ECB solution is very temporary, right? It opens the banks, it puts some liquidity into the banks. They can't continue doing it ad infinitum. Obviously, some of the nations are going to object very strongly to doing that without a bailout deal on the table. The bailout deal in and of itself is a temporary solution, meaning let's say they come down to a reasonable level of surplus, 1.5%, 2% or something like that, kill out all these crazy lump sum payments in the near term, push everything out for a very, very long time. That's not going to revive the Greek economy.
Where do you get the growth from? That's the heart of the matter this morning.
The bottom line is Greece is not competitive within the Eurozone. I think
agree.
That's very, very clear to everybody. What they should do, in my opinion, and I've written about this some, is they, and this is true probably of a couple of other countries as well, they should announce a G-Euro, right? Don't call it a drachma. And basically say, look, we're going to peg it and enlist the ECB's help in defending the level of that currency. I don't know if it ends up at 60 cents to the euro or 70 cents or 80 cents, wherever it ends up. It will float. And over time, if the economy grows, it will float back to a level near the euro. And what the policy should be up front is to say this is temporary. When the G-Euro recovers, we will eliminate it and go back into the system. It is a timeout for Greece.